students! There is in this whole conspiracy a strange national drift, as though the curved body of the Leviathan broke the waves at several points, as though there were a rough beast slouching toward Detroit to be born. The three lands where the sea creature breaks the waves are Germany, Ireland, and Detroit. Consider that the place of incubation for the occult texts that have proven pertinent to our venture, the sacred book of Abramelin and the Abbot Trithemius, were both German. The occult drift next cropped up in England, which at the time of Dr. John Dee's work ruled Ireland. After a period of Irish independence, it was united with England again, and it was during this period that Mary Ward and her cousin, the 3rd Earl of Ross, lived and died. The children of the Earl of Ross then scattered to the Americas and to various motor industries. Richard Clear Parsons was a railroad tycoon in South America, and Charles Algernon, whose life ended in Jamaica, developed a steam turbine that became standard issue in battleships. The Earl's distant relative, by my calculation his 8th cousin twice removed, was Jack Parsons, who developed rocket fuel in Los Angeles and had his own occult interests as well. All of these other engines, train, ship, rocket, spin the drain of the prime engine of our inquiry, the taker of Mary Ward's life and the dedicatee of the repeated sacrifice of crash test dummies, the car. Irish car manufacturing, since this date, is cursed. Of the 8 models that the island has produced, only the DeLorean has reached a production run of more than 1,000, and even that storied car could not break 5-digit sales. Meanwhile, American car manufacturing, and especially in Detroit, where the crash test dummy was developed to its highest forms, boomed. Detroit is also the site of the occult end of this national magical industrial story eating its own tail. The Diocese of Detroit was created in 1833, and the bishop set over it was a man named Frederick Rees, the first German-born man to receive a bishopric in the Americas. In the mid-1840s, at the same time that the Leviathan was being built, Rees is said to have, quote-unquote, become demented and unable to fulfill his duties. The church has well hushed up the details of what might have been meant by this obscure phrase, but was unable to abolish the fact that he did refuse to leave his post until his death in 1872, just 3 years after the death of Mary Ward. It is also noteworthy that, according to the March 14, 2015 edition of the Detroit News, that city was the most peacefully Irish Catholic American city of the early Americas. Though Boston and New York were home to major Irish populations, those cities were strife-ridden and Protestant-run. Between Father Trithemius and Bishop Rees, I was led to investigate the Catholicism of Ireland, which led me to a very interesting story. The conversion of Ireland from a pagan to a Catholic nation was achieved, at least mythologically, by St. Patrick. The saint is many-storied, but one particular event in his life seems important here. According to a text known as the Book of Leinster, St. Patrick halted the worship of a particularly bloodthirsty god by smashing his stone image with a sledgehammer. That god was Crom Cruach, whose name means either the crouching darkness or the crooked god, depending on whose etymology you prefer. Crom is said to have been a golden idol surrounded by 12 bronze idols. These 12 surrounding images, it has been speculated in certain periodicals, suggest that he is a god of the zodiac, a star god. I do not call Crom a bloodthirsty god lightly. The same source cites him as receiving sacrifices of firstborn babies in exchange for the fertility of the land. Another text, called the Annals of the Four Masters, claims that 3/4 of the army of the early High King Tigermas died while worshipping Crom Cruach on Halloween. He was a most dangerous spirit. Another account of Crom's ruin from the tripartite life of St. Patrick has some slightly different details. In this version, instead of a sledgehammer, St. Patrick used his crozier to destroy the idol. In so doing, he leaves the imprint of his crozier in place of the image of Crom on the idol. The spirit of the idol then appears to St. Patrick, who banishes it from earth. It is worth noting that the Western-style crozier that St. Patrick would have had is effectively a spiral, Let us also remember that St. Patrick's image is the clover, a three-leafed plant. Irish religion is particularly ancient, with certain monuments predating the pyramids. There is one in particular that I believe is pertinent to our current study, called the Newgrange Monument. This is a burial mound that is dated to 3200 BC. It consists of a long passageway that terminates in a series of chambers. The largest such chamber has a high fluted window above it. The window is narrow and long, such that the sun only shines through it and into the chamber on one day of the year. That day is the winter solstice. Suppose that St. Patrick did paper over Crom Cruach's cult image with his crozier, or even his three-leafed spiral. What would be meant by his banishing? Did he have the authority to drag this star demon out of the sky and shove it through to a final judgment? Or would Crom's banishing be under a seal, deeper in the heavens from which he was drawn? The winter solstice that charged the image of the Newgrange Monument may have been rendered useless by St. Patrick's work. But what if technology unlocked powers in a contemporary Irishman of occult bent? I'd like to run through some of the similarities between the Newgrange Monument and the Leviathan of Parsonstown. Newgrange had a passageway of 60 feet. The Leviathan's focal distance is 52.5 feet. Newgrange was an instrument for focusing the light of the winter solstice sun, the time of year when the sun was at its weakest. The Leviathan gathered light from the deep heavens in order to reveal its most remote mysteries. Newgrange illuminated a triple spiral design. So did the Leviathan. The most significant observational contribution that the Leviathan of Parsonstown made was the observation of three spirals: the Whirlpool Galaxy, known as M51, its dwarf galaxy, NGC 5195, and the Sunflower Galaxy, M63. Could it be that by gathering up and intensifying the light of these galaxies, the third Earl of Ross was using John Dee's occult optics in order to revive the ancient god which St. Patrick bound in the crouching darkness under the triple spiral? And we have reason to believe that the third Earl of Ross was well versed in ancient Irish religion. In the 1820s, he received what is known as the Dowris Hoard. This was the largest discovery of prehistoric Irish objects ever unearthed, and it happened to be located mere miles from the site where the Earl eventually built his Leviathan years later. This find, the Dowris Hoard, passed through the Earl's hands before being bequeathed to various museums. But there is no way to know what was kept by the Earl and his family. Is it possible that the telescope was built atop an ancient ritual site, or that pre-Catholic contact with spirits like Crom Cruach left traces on the objects that were entrusted to him? My conjecture, then, is this: that Crom Cruach was indeed called down by William Parsons during his astronomical work in the 1860s. The spirit, hungry for human sacrifice, took Mary Ward. He eventually made his way to Detroit, probably by means of the mad Bishop Frederick Rees. There he festered until the illuminated masters there began their systematic sacrifices in the name of automobile safety. Eventually, under the tutelage of ascetic scientist Dr. Patrick, who, I might point out, shares a name with the previous Christian foe of Crom Cruach, Harold Metz invented the hybrid three-feeling robot, whose repeated torture and destruction slaked Crom's thirst for sacrifice and ensured the prosperity of the American automotive industry. This is our third inquiry to open, and I would encourage you, my students, to continue study in these veins and others. We are mapping the work of the illuminated masters, and armed with this knowledge, we may survive better in this world. Until next time, may the pyramid's eye watch over us all.